on the academic content that is needed, that is required in the learning environment to prepare the students to be good citizens in society and productive citizens in society. And of course, there is a big thrust on thinking skills, critical thinking skills, getting the student to actually be thinking about things, not just regurgitating or restating what teacher says or what some book says, but be thinking critically about the situation. So we'll be looking in different ways on some of these things today. Okay, so we're moving to the next slide. So that's in a nutshell curriculum. If there are any questions about that, you can always put it in the chat and we'll speak about it later on. But the big part of it now is support as a parent. How do I support the curriculum at home? What should be delivered at school, at home, beyond what I've been doing as a parent? And I imagine that many of us as parents have been thinking about that with the advent of the online platforms that are to be utilized, whether the child is in early childhood, the little ones, or if they're in primary, and of course for the high school segment, section of our aspect of our education system. Now the slide you're looking at outlines at a glance just some of the areas in which we will need to support our children, because even though we talk about curriculum support, we really are talking about supporting our children in learning what the curriculum has to offer. So the child is really at the center of it. So we hope to look at disciplinary support, because normally teachers would do that, but here we are now where whether us as parents or designates will have to ensure that discipline is maintained within the teaching learning space. Academic support, that will have to be given even more on a physical level with our children. Looking at technological support, and by now you know what that is, where they need to have whatever gadgets and access to internet and everything else technologically to be able to do what school expects them to do now, and our curriculum, the curriculum is requiring now. We'll be looking at the collaborative support as well, glancing at that a bit, and psychological support. And our children will need all of this now, because just as we are struggling with the changes, so the children have to be learning a new way of doing things without their friends around them all the time, without teacher being right there for them to call to and talk to. So the role of the parent is greater, and I know that that is a big thing for us as parents. Can we move on? So for disciplinary support, how can I support my child so that there is a disciplined environment, disciplined kind of interaction in the learning environment and in the practice environment, so that they can benefit and continue to progress with their learning? Because with all that's going on, we still expect our children to be learning what they should be learning so they can move on. Because as their age will move on, the grade will move on, and they will have to move on. So here are some of the things that we have to consider. So routines. We have to ensure that we have routines in the home. We set up routines. So in doing that, we are supporting the school timetable, because you'll expect that sessions, the teachers will have sessions with them online, and whatever timetable the teacher sets, we have to ensure as parents that our children are ready for those sessions. Okay, that they're not in bed when they should be in class, that they're prepared and in the frame of mind to work in that, with the routine of school, the timetable of school in the home space. So we need to have the child ready for each session. The younger ones will take a lot more, as we know. The older ones may be able to help themselves if they are managing themselves well enough. For some of them, depending on their challenges, then they may need a little bit more supervision to get with the timetable and to be ready for each session. Also, we have to look at the homework assignments. So teacher teaches, there will be assignments. How do we schedule that? What kind of routine we'll have for that? When class is over, what is the child supposed to do? At what time are the homework assignments to be done? When is playtime? Because they still need to play. School has moved into your house. School has moved into the fun space of your child, and that might not be very welcomed. So all of that has to be considered. When do I eat? Do I pull out my food and start eating while class is going on and there's supposed to be interaction? Or is there a snack time? And the school might schedule the snack time, but depending on the age of the child, the parents will need to help them to monitor and access those times and be ready again to move on. Bathroom breaks too. So they need to go to the bathroom before class begins so that they don't have to run out as soon as class begins. Why do we want to make sure that we have this? So that they will not miss anything. Right now, we don't want our children to be missing anything because it is already a difficult situation for them and for us. So we want to ensure they're not missing anything. So those things need to be scheduled and be made a part of the routine in getting ready to access whatever is there regarding the curriculum in the kind of setting that we'll have now. We have to ensure that we have boundaries, so they can't be playing the TV, watching TV, somebody turning on the TV and watching a show while, whether it's a child who's doing it or another sibling or some other member in the household, there has to be boundaries. And then you realize that these boundaries will also require that other people in the household are cognizant of the fact that it is a learning space for my brother or my sister at this time, my son, my daughter, my niece, my nephew, my grandchild at this time. So I'm going to accommodate them by reducing the distractions within their space at that time. And finally, to have rewards. Disciplinary support include rewards and praise. So we don't just talk to them when they're going out of bounds or talk to them when they're not following the routine, but we need to be ready to encourage them and praise them and give them a little extra playtime on their favorite game because they did so well in being disciplined in the class session and in getting their homework done and to sticking with the routine. All right. So disciplinary support is something that as parents we have to consider now. The school will be considering it and teachers will be setting their rules, but the school will also need the parents to help to ensure that the space in which the child is accessing all of this education now online is conducive and appropriate for them. Now, I mentioned collaborative support to you on that big diagram. So we're now looking at collaborative support, monitoring and managing of our students and their space. All right, it's good. Collaboration is a word that we've heard a lot since the new curriculum was implemented, where students collaborate with each other, teachers and students collaborate, and home and school collaborate. It's not new in terms of the activity itself, but the word itself, collaborate, we hear it a lot, and it refers to just working together to ensure that we achieve the end for this educational goal, the curriculum goals, the goals that we have set for our students to help them to progress and move on. They have to be monitored. So who is going to do that? We have parents who might be available, and some might be available partially. Some might not be available at all, depending on your work schedule. Some of us might not be available. But in that case, we can have a designate, somebody who can sit in, okay, or see how we can problem solve to best accommodate the teaching learning time of our students, since it's now in our home. All right. Academic support. Now that one, when we think of curriculum, we think of academics for the most part. So academic support is a major one here, but all the others are needed and required. For the academic support, we need to ensure that there's a designated space. Parents, we have to ensure there's a designated space for a child. Why? When it's time for school, they need to know it's time for school. And if they're used to going in a particular space for class, then it will actually get them in a better frame of mind, to have a better mindset, to receiving what is being delivered, and to interacting as though they're in school. All right. And it's best for us to have that space being somewhat stimulating, because for those of us who have been to school and seeing see in the classrooms, especially for early childhood parents and primary school parents, you find that the space that they're used to is stimulating. You have charts on the walls, you have pictures, you have activities that they can put their hands on, you have beautiful things around that can get them to think and can get them to help to solve some of the problems and to handle some of the assignments that they might have be given. So the space needs to be designated. If it's even a little corner in a room in the house, they need to feel like this is my classroom. Here is my chart on the wall that mommy and I made, or that mommy was able to buy and put up, or daddy was able to buy and put up. And so it needs to remind them of school somewhat, all right? So that they can focus and know that, okay, it is not home time now, it is school time. So whatever else I would normally do at home, that is on pause now, and I'm focusing on school. This is my school space, my classroom space. All right, so we move on. Okay, so while we consider moving on to the next slide, thank you. You saw the pictures of those activities that can be manipulative, that can be in the space. Those will be discussed in a little bit more detail a little bit later on. So now we're looking at literacy. And for those of us who have had children in primary school, especially when the revised primary curriculum was being utilized by the teachers, we know that literacy and numeracy are terms that we became acquainted with if we were not used to it before, because by virtue of the fact that we're teachers, or we are close to the education circle. All right, so when we speak of literacy though, we're speaking of reading, understanding what you read, and being able to communicate through writing and speaking. All right, there are a lot of sub-skills within literacy, but these are the main areas that we'll look at when we're thinking about literacy. So we're moving on now. Okay, for the literacy space, we have to ensure, or we should ensure, because we're trying to get our children to maximize whatever learning is available, we should try to ensure that there are sources of information in that space. So that same little space there that is stimulating, that is designated for their class within the house, we should ensure that there are sources of information there. Of course, the first source that we may think of is the electronic source, because that is what they'll be using now. Whether it be the tablet, the laptop, whatever it is that they're using to access, or phone, whatever they're using to access. Now, for the sources of information as well, there are certain books that also should be there. They're school books. So right now I'm going to be having language arts. Teacher said we're having language arts. There it is on the timetable on the wall. So what am I supposed to have? I need my notebook. I need my textbook, language arts textbook. I need my dictionary. All right. But sources of information include the books, textbooks, charts, videos, and other things that the child might have written, notebook that the child has written in already that has information that they can look back on. We recommend as well hands-on materials within that space. Having hands-on materials. By hands-on, things that they can manipulate. So whether the child is in basic school, preschool, in the early childhood system, or in the primary part of our education system, having hands-on materials within that space, such as letter cards, and letter cards are good all the way up to primary. So you can do many things with them. So you can have a shoebox with letter cards. The child could make them, and you put them in depending on the age, or you can help them. Word cards should be in the space, words that the child needs to learn, words that teacher mentions in social studies, in science, whatever it is. Those words can be put on cards, and that becomes a part of your word card collection, maybe in another shoebox. Games should be available. Letter cards and word cards can be used for games, but there may be other games that you have available, such as if you have Scrabble, which is one that you probably would have bought already, Boggle, another word letter game. Word games such as Snakes and Ladder, puzzles, puzzle books, those kind of things, activities, hands-on things. Minds-on materials are things that get them to think. I mentioned puzzle a while ago. Get that while they're working on the puzzle, whether they're trying to go through a maze to figure out a maze, or to put pieces of puzzles together, or to find words within a find a word puzzle, it would be good to have some of those plus worksheets and their workbooks within that space. So it's organized. You can let them help you to organize it so they feel like it's my space and I know where everything is. And when I'm ready for my activities, here they are. We can move on. We're moving on to the next slide. Okay. So one of the things that should be within the literacy space as well are enrichment activities. And it might not be during class time that you do this. Enrichment activities are usually additional activities that teachers allow students to utilize to continue to sharpen their skills and extend their learning. So some activities might be on the computer on the internet. Some activities can be just worksheets that they can practice in with. But within that, for the enrichment, you want to ensure that they have experiences that will help them to learn better. So real life experiences, you know, especially for the younger ones, a nature walk outside where you have a little yard space. So they can look at the plants that are there and the butterflies flitting around and be able to talk about them. So even outside of the classroom corner or classroom space and outside of teacher delivering lesson online, we want to ensure that if we're not able to do it, we have somebody who can walk our little one around the yard. And that because teacher would normally take them on nature walks, but teacher doesn't have that ability now to take them on nature walks because they're not with her or they're not with him. So whoever you designate to help your little one can take them on walks and they talk about what they see. All right, so they need those experiences. Where you don't have the space, you can have what we call vicarious experiences by going somewhere on the internet, looking at picture scenes of a backyard that has butterflies, that has little animals moving around, that has little plants and flowers, and that can be something that they can observe and it can be a part of a conversation with them. For enrichment, they also need to be given opportunity to explain. So they talk about what they've seen based on the experiences that you allow them to have, enrichment activities. They're able to talk about it, they're able to explain what they're looking at and what they've seen. And they can write about it depending on their age. They can draw, they can color, they can do many things in explaining, trying to explain, or to talk about or write about or present what they've experienced to you, because teacher would normally ensure that this happens in the classroom within the school space. But here we are, school is at home. And then we need to enrich that enrichment of literacy. We should be able to get them to extend their learning through questioning. So we question them about what they see, because some of them might not be very talkative and might not just decide to talk right away. But what you might find happening is that once you ask a question, they'll be willing to speak. All right? Allow them to say what they like and what they don't like. Some of them might not like to go in the dirt, in the backyard. And some of them might appreciate it very much. So let them talk about their likes and dislikes. Let them talk about their alternative ideas. You know, okay, so instead of going in the backyard, can we check out other places, look at other places in other countries, other scenes on the computer to see what other people's backyard might look like and whether it looks like mine, that kind of thing. So there should be, for enrichment, experiences, whether online or in person, practically moving around. There needs to be opportunity for them to speak and explain, and their learning should be extended. Now, finally, for literacy, you can look at this picture, and I'm going to ask you, please, if there's anything that you want to say or to ask, or any question that I might ask at you and you wish to answer, you could please put your answer in the chat so that we can see them. All right. Okay, so here we have a stimulus picture. All right. Now, a picture can be utilized for any age group, okay? And it's a stimulus picture because it gets the child thinking. What can we get out of this that can help with literacy? What do you think your child could learn from just looking at this picture, or maybe stimulated to think about as they look at this picture? I'll give you a moment. You can put a few answers in the chat. Okay, and while you're doing that, what can come out of it? What is it that can come out of it? First of all, you can ask questions of the child. What do you see? What do you think is happening? Who do you think these people are? Is there anything in the picture that reminds you of anything that you have experienced or that you have seen? Yes, it could help with projects. Thank you. I'm seeing that, Natalie. This could help with projects at home. Yes. Assisting with work at home. I'm seeing that. Yes. This is one of the easiest ways to engage your child in literacy as a parent, because from this, you can get them to think about letters of the alphabet and the sounds they make. You can get them to think about the names and words. You can get them to actually, as you go up in the age group, you can get them to actually make lists of words. So they are making the list of words, they are reading it. You can get them to talk about it by making sentences, telling you sentences with the words that they observe. Oh, children helping with chores at home, around the house. I see that one. So that's an idea that it could generate. And then the child, that is very relatable for the child, because there are chores at home too that he or she have allowed him or her to help you with. So it's very relatable. So it really, because it's relatable, it can be something that your child is willing and able to talk about very readily. And also to write. So it can help with reading letters, reading words, because these can be generated from the discussion. What do you see? The words can be written down, depending on the age of the child. And the child can associate the words with the pictures and be able to remember them. It can help them to create the word cards, help them to create sentences orally and to write sentences. They can even write stories, an entire story. So a picture like this can be utilized for any age, any grade. It's just about the question that you ask and the activity that the child is allowed to think about and interact with and to produce from it. All right, so we're moving on to critical thinking. By the way, if there are any questions about the literacy part of it, whether you think there's something that could have been addressed that I haven't mentioned, or something that you're thinking of that could be mentioned, you can write it down, or if you have any questions about that. So we're moving on now to critical thinking. Just put whatever you want to say in the chat, it's being monitored. Okay, can you see the slide? Can we see the slide? Is anybody seeing a slide?
No.
No, okay. We're moving on to critical thinking. And so as Mrs. Grant brings up the slides again, we're moving on to critical thinking. This is a term that has been, you've heard. Have you been hearing about the critical thinking? Oh, action words could be stimulated from that, yes. Using action words in sentences, vocabulary development, very good. Thank you, Debbie. That's a very good one. All right, so critical thinking. Are we any clearer now on critical thinking than we were the first time we heard it? Is there anything that we would like? Is there anybody who feels that they don't understand what this critical thinking is? I'm checking the chat for it. I'm checking the chat. Critical thinking. Are you any clearer on critical thinking now than when it was just introduced with the advent of the national standards curriculum in primary schools now. Okay, I'm checking the chat, seeing if, or if you can, if you're able to unmute yourself, you can ask. You can say what you have to say. If not, just put it in the chat and let's continue speaking. You should be seeing the slide now. Okay. Okay, so Shulane, I hope I'm pronouncing Shulane. That's a beautiful name. I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. You said yes, you are clearer on critical thinking now than before. Okay, I'm seeing another yes. Is there? Okay, all right, so the slides are up. So for critical thinking, Mrs. Grant, could we go back to the next one, please? The one before this one? The slide before? Okay, I'm seeing that many of us are aware of it. Very good. All right. Okay, down one more, Mrs. Grant. Okay, one more, thank you. Yes, right there, thank you. So everybody can see that one, critical thinking. What is it? I'm seeing 3 yeses in the chat that you understand what it's about. I'm not seeing the no that I'm seeing at the top. I'm not sure if that is referring to Dwight, if you're referring to critical thinking. But looking at what critical thinking is, we're going to look at the slide that you're seeing on your screen now. So critical thinking includes decision making, and I'm sure many of you who said that you understand it now can agree. So we're looking at this brain teaser. All right, brain teasers are good for building critical thinking. For those of us who weren't sure, here's this brain teaser. You're looking at this picture, and there's a scenario to go with it. It says a rooster stood on a roof facing east and laid an egg. The wind was blowing from the west at 10 miles per hour. In which direction did the egg roll? Please put your answer in the chat. I'm giving you a moment to put your answer in the chat for this brain teaser. Okay, Natalie, I'm seeing you saying no direction. Richard, we were saying that critical thinking is about factual events. Okay. Why did you say no direction, Natalie? What made you know that there's no direction for the egg to roll in? Ah, wonderful. Roosters do not lay eggs. I'm sure we all know that. But when you look at the scenario, because of all the facts about the wind or the information, the distractors that are within the scenario, the wind, the rooster is facing east, and the wind blowing at 10 miles per hour. You know, it would be easy to be distracted by those. And this is what happens with our children sometimes when they have to think critically, or they have scenarios or questions that they have to analyze, and they need to make a decision to be able to give an answer. Sometimes they focus on the wrong information within the situation and the scenario. All right. When you look at it though, what it is within the scenario that gives you the answer, the correct answer, what is the real information you needed from it? Which word in the scenario? Somebody please put your answer in quickly so we can continue. So we know roosters do not lay eggs, but what is it in the scenario? What information that's given allows you to know that the answer is no direction? Which word or words in the scenario? Okay, I can see that some of us are trying to respond. I'm not getting it though. Which word or words in the scenario? Will one person please respond? Okay, should I go ahead and do so? All right, because we have to move on. I'm not seeing any answer in the chat. All right, so the key word there is rooster. That's the only information there that you needed to be able to answer the question, because roosters really don't lay eggs. All right, so we're continuing on to the next slide. So to make a decision, while the next slide is coming, thank you. To make a decision, you have to consider all the information given, whether they are facts or whether they are true or untrue, and zero in on what it is that you need from all that you've given, the information that you've been given, to be able to answer the question and answer it well. All right, now we can also use analogies. So that was a brain teaser. We can also use analogies to help to develop critical thinking. You analyze a given statement or segment of a statement and be able to complete it like this one. This is one way of doing it. Now, for those of us who were at school at my age, you would have been aware of some analogies like these. Okay, go, look at the first one. Go is to went as do is to. Can I have an answer for that one? Go is to went as do is to.
Did.
Did. Who was that now? Who was that?
Dorrit White.
Dorrit, thank you so much. Go is to went as, stay on, Dorrit, stay on.
Go is to went as do is to did.
What?
Did.
Very good. So how did you process it? You're correct. How did you process it? What did you have to think about in order to give that answer?
The past tense.
Very good. Very good. So you'd be able to pick that up. Now, if you notice, this would require a little background knowledge. So you would not necessarily give this to your early childhood student who is in class 1. All right? You wouldn't do that because it requires some background knowledge, okay? About past tense. All right, we continue. Shopkeeper is the customer. Somebody can put an answer in for that one if you can. Or
patient.
Shopkeeper is
the patient. Patient.
Patient, and that's Yuri.
Yeah.
Beautiful name, Yuri. To patient, very good. And what in the scenario did you use, in the analogy, did you use to help you to come to that conclusion?
Shopkeeper
you analyze the scenario. What is it?
Shopkeeper sells and the doctor looks after patients.
People in general.
All right, very good. So you see, even as simple as it looks, your child, our children, depending on their age, would have to be able to analyze that to be able to give an answer. We have had experience with this. They might not have had it. So this is why it's important to allow them to have certain experiences. All right? So help them to give them the background experience and knowledge to be able to do something like this. All right? So everything comes together. Open is to close, as reveal is to
hide.
There's another word for hide. A C word.
Hidden.
C-O-N.
Conceal.
C-O-N-C.
Conceal.
Conceal. Very good.
Conceal.
Who said conceal?
It's a
verb.
Laverne.
Laverne?
It was in the chat. It was in the chat.
It was in the chat. All right. Thank you. Now realize too that vocabulary matters in this case. If you never knew the word conceal, you probably wouldn't come up with that. And hide could be acceptable, but there are shades of differences with words that mean the same thing. So that is even a higher level of analogy that helps critical thinking. The final one, no, the second to last one for our critical thinking is a numbers one. So we looked at the brain teaser. We looked at the using in language arts, using analogies to build critical thinking. And now we're looking at numbers. Look at this now. You have this pair of numbers. It says find a pair that is similar to the given pair of numbers. 180 to 90. And this is a challenge for many persons and for many of our children.
After the dividing by
It's a
2.
critical thinking statement. What would be the answer? Dorothy, you're trying to respond?
By 2.
Says what? It's a division dividing by 2.
It's a ratio. The ratio is 2 to 1.
2 to 1, right?
The ratio is
That's
2
the
to 1.
ratio.
And in that case,
Yes.
you're correct. In that case, you're not really dividing by 2, you're dividing by 90.
By 90.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
But you know what you're talking about. And this is what happens with our children sometimes with these. They know what they're talking about, but when they're to come to select an answer, there becomes a confusion between the process that they took to get to where they need to get to make the decision and the decision itself.
I mean, the answer
All right?
is B.
And the answer is B. Thank you. Last one now. Last one, patterns.
Oh.
It's another critical thinking activity. All right. And for this one, you have the problem on, you're selecting a suitable figure for the answer. That would replace the question sign. You want to replace the question sign with a figure. First of all, you have to figure out the pattern. I'm not going to take too long on this. But first of all, you have to figure out the pattern. All right? And this is a challenge for many students, even at the grade 6 level. All right? You look at the first one, then you look at the relationship that it has with the second one. Then you look at the third one, and then see if the pattern of the first two is such where you separate the sticks in that way, changing them to the opposite direction from the dot. Then if you have 2 sticks with the dot, with 2 dots, the next thing that should come would be number 3.
Number 3.
Number 3.
Oh,
Look at number 3.
So
you still have the 2 dots.
Yeah.
The sticks are separated, but it's turned down in the opposite direction from the dot. You see how many things you have to consider to actually do this. Thank you for listening. Thank you for participating. All right. So finally, for critical thinking helpmates. So in that corner there that you prepare for your child, the school within your house, the classroom within your house, that you prepare for your child, here are some things that you can have in that space to help to build critical thinking. For some of them, the child may be able to do it alone.
Yes.
For some of them, you might need to assist or somebody else might need to assist. But here are some basic things. Blocks. And blocks can be used at any age because it helps the children to figure out patterns. All right? Colored blocks, building blocks help the children to figure out patterns from an early age. All right? Puzzles should be in that space. Whether it's find a word puzzle, thank you. Whether it's find a word puzzle, mazes, board games, pattern activities, and of course, scenarios like what were presented here. And as they go up in age, you're looking at the kind of questions that are asked, why questions, how questions, what do you think, those kind of questions. And then you have debates, all right, debates at a higher level, all right? So now we're going to hand over to Mrs. Grant, who will be looking at numeracy and continuing. Thank you for your participation.
All right, wonderful, wonderful. Thank you. Can you hear me well?
Yes.
Wonderful.
Yes.
All right, now we're going to move into numeracy. All right. So I'm trying to find the participant whose microphone I need to mute. So Carly, Mrs. Myers, perhaps you can. Okay, so let me mute Yuri. All right. Perhaps that's it. All right, so numeracy, when we talk about numeracy, simply put, we are looking at students' ability to understand numbers, to work with numbers, and to apply the knowledge that they have of numbers to make sense of the world. A very, very important skill. All right, so some areas that we look at when we think about numeracy, we're looking at numbers, understanding of numbers, measurement, geometry, statistics, algebra, and so on forward. As we go higher through the grades, or as we advance through the grades, we're looking at different things too, like probability. All right. Now, the financial situation that exists as a result of the COVID pandemic, and even the financial situation that exists or existed even before the pandemic, you know, makes it so important for us as parents to find creative ways of supporting the curriculum by strengthening our children's skills in numeracy and in literacy, as Mrs. Marius mentioned. So let's look, right now I'm going to take you to some practical tips real quickly, things that you can do without spending any holy money out of your pocket, Word speaking, things that you can do to strengthen or to build on the skills that are being taught at school. So for example, now, let's look at cooking while we're cooking. There are so many opportunities to do math while we're cooking. For example, let's look at those who have children at the early childhood level. Children who need help with counting, and not just children at the early childhood level, children with special education needs who need additional reinforcement. All right, we can look at counting the number of ingredients that we're going to use in the recipe. So we're making dumplings, and we know we have our flour and our water and our salt. All right, those are things that we can count. If we're frying dumpling, we have the addition of the oil and the butter for those who add it in there. Those are things that we can do. So while we're in the kitchen cooking, we call them and they come and we say, all right, let's count these. Measurement is something that comes out too when we're cooking. We can look at how many teaspoons, tablespoons, and so on and so forth, grams. All right. We can also look at, I'm hearing a lot of noise in the background for someone. We can also look at equivalencies, all right? So for example, we will help them to understand that 250 milliliters, when you see it, it's the same thing as 1 cup, right? So the same measuring cup that we have in our kitchen, we can use it and have our children practice measurement. And these are important skills that they are required to learn and to know in the curriculum at the early childhood level, and more so at the primary school level, and even into early high schools. These are skills that they build on and that allow them to be able to master more advanced content. We're looking at problem solving skills. This is how we can encourage that while we're cooking as well. So let's say I am baking a Christmas cake, all right? And I have a particular recipe. So I love to use Google for recipes now. I'm not as gifted as many persons, or I don't have a reservoir of knowledge as it relates to how to go about. I don't have recipes hanging on in my head, right? So I use Google a lot. So sometimes we may see a recipe and we say that, boy, this recipe serves 5 persons. But guess what? I want to make something that will serve 10 because I don't want to run out my gas to have to go to 2 little something one time, word speaking. And so this is something that we can have our children do as well. Say to them, all right, Johnny, all right, Tom, I want to double the recipe. So if it is that the first recipe calls for 2 eggs, how many eggs will I need if I'm going to double it up? All right, then we can get even more creative. What if I want to half the recipe? What do I do? Let's look at fractions as well. Very, very important as well. Cooking butter. Many of us use cooking butter and have cooking butter in our fridge or in our cupboards, right? Now, we can use cooking butter to help our children to explore fractions. So we can help them to understand what half of a cooking butter means by having them cut it in 2 equal parts. What a quarter looks like, what a third looks like. So these are different things that we can do to work on fractions. Equivalences in fractions, a pizza, for example, or it could be a dumpling, all right? But just imagine a pizza that is cut into 8 equal sides, equal pieces rather, like the pizza that you're seeing on your screen, all right? So we can say, all right, Gretel, so each pizza measures an 1/8, or each pizza represents an 1/8, all right? How many pieces or how many 8s will it take to be equal to a quarter of that pizza, all right? And so Gretel could look at that and easily say to me, all right, mommy, 2 pizza slices are needed, all right? So 2 8s is the same thing as a quarter. Can you see that? Are you following along with me, mommies and daddies? All right, I'm not hearing, but I'm taking it that you're following along, all right? Now, when you look again at cooking, And in our present situation, you know, we have family and friends coming over from time to time. So let's say we have a scenario where we have some relatives, they're coming to visit us, right? And so we'll say, I will say, for example, all right, Caleb, 1 pound of rice, you know, can feed 4 persons, okay? So if Auntie Jenny and her 19 friends, our church friends, they're coming over tomorrow, how many pounds of rice will I need to buy in order to feed us as a family along with Auntie Jenny? All right, then we can extend that a little more. We can have them look at calculating how much it will cost, all right, in order to provide that. Numbers as well, no. Now, let's say we are going places. I know it's a little difficult now in terms of traveling because many of us opt to remain at home, which is as much as we can do. It's a very safe way to proceed at this point in time with the COVID pandemic. But let's say we're working on numbers now. While we're at the bus stop and we're waiting for the JUTC buses, or while we're walking to the bus stop, let us be intentional in looking for numbers that are written on street signs or on the buses or wherever it is. So let's say we see the number 12. We can say, all right, Susan, let's count forward. Let's count by twos. Let's jump. Let's count in jumps of twos. So we'll probably move now. So we're at 12, and then we're going to move to 14 and move to 16 and so on forth. If we see, let's say we see the number 2, we can do the same thing. We can also mix that up by having them do multiplication. All right. So for example, we see the number 5 on a bus. And we say, all right, because either way, we're standing here, we're waiting at the bus stop, right? So we say, all right, Susan, if you multiply 5 by 2, what answer will you get? Or do your 5 timetables. Just find many opportunities as you can to be intentional. That is what we're looking at, being intentional about recognizing opportunities in our environment that allow us to strengthen and to emphasize numeracy skills. All right, looking at time as well. There are a lot of business places that will have their digital clocks displayed. So when I talk about the digital clock now, I'm talking about the clock that, for example, when you look at it, you see 12 and the 2 little dots and the 0, 0. Those are digital clocks. So children are expected to be able to tell time. They're expected to be able to have an understanding of time. They're expected to be able to not just understand digital time, which is a little easier, but they should be able to convert that to the traditional round clock, like the ones that we have at home, right? With the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on forth written on it. And so certainly we want to, when we have those opportunities and we see those digital clocks, we want to draw their attention to it, and we can say to them, for example, how would that look on the clock that we have at home? Where would the hands be? What time is that? All right, these are important things that we're looking at. You're at the bus stop and you're waiting for the bus again. I'll go back to that as well. You can have them say, all right, so we get to the bus stop at 10 o'clock. So I say, Johnny, all right, let's look at the time. So it's 10 o'clock now. Let's see how long it will take for the bus to come. All right, and you allow him, you give him a little phone, or you put your timer on if you have to, or you show him the clock on your phone and you have him time the bus coming. All right, those are important things. Timing traffic lights, you see how quickly they change. These are ways that we can be intentional in observing opportunities to strengthen math skills, all right, while we're going around. Certainly as well, when you look at being at the supermarket, seeing money signs, these are things that we can bring our children or draw their attention to, all right? So for example, now you go into the wholesale and you see that chicken is for $50 a pound. That was many years ago, eh? But let's say chicken is for $50 per pound. And we say, all right, Susan, so Mr. Chin said chicken is $50 a pound. How much will it be if we multiply that by 2? All right? How much will it be if we multiply that by 10? Just use these opportunities. We're passing a gas station. Gas prices are fluctuating every minute. So we say, all right, so if it's a gas station that we pass every day, for example, we say, all right, Georgette, I want you to pay attention to what's the price for gas on Monday when I'm going to school, right? And we see that a liter of gas is for $150. So each day when we're passing a gas station, no, you're going to ask me to make a note of the prices that I see. And then at the end of the week, I'm going to tell you, or even during the course of the period, whether the prices are increasing, whether they are decreasing. And the child, we're going to look at how much it is increasing or decreasing by. For the younger ones, just a very opportunity to show them what a dollar sign looks like is wonderful. And it's a wonderful way of exposing and preparing them for the primary level when they'll be required now to work more directly with money and money concepts, right? Shapes as well, very important in early childhood, very important too for children at the primary level and even at the high school level, all right? Different levels. So for example, again, we are going somewhere. Let us be intentional. Let's look at the shapes that we see. All right, so Tommy, let's go. And it doesn't have to be the shapes on street signs, no. It could be the shape of my neighbor's house, the shape of the tire on the car, the shape of the bag that is coming from the supermarket. Just little things like that. Let's be intentional is what we're saying. And then for older children, no, we want to look at three-dimensional shapes. You can include those. So those are like the cubes and the spheres and the cones. All right. We want to look at helping them to identify things. Polygons is something that they have to do in primary school, like hexagons. We're going to look at all of these things. We are being intentional. All right. We can look at angles as well. You know, that is something that we do in primary school, and it progresses through to high school as well. What does it mean when you talk about a 360-degree angle? Let's say you have a light post in your community. We know that a full turn is 360 degrees. So walk with Tommy around the light post. Be creative, all right? Help him to visually see and get an understanding of what we mean by 360 degrees. So when we put it in the book, he has something to pull from. You understand? We have 90-degree angles in our homes, in the corners. So let's take them and have them see these things. Very important. So again, these are things that I know many parents may do, but I want you to be intentional. So that is what I want you to take away from this. Be intentional. Patterns, I'm going to move over this a little because Mrs. Myers touched a little bit on patterns as she spoke, but it is important as well to help our children to recognize patterns in these lines. No, let's look at farming and gardening, no, because I don't know if we have in our group no parents from Portland or from areas where you're able to farm, but I would expect so. And so there are many opportunities as well to teach this, all right? Length. So we're looking at centimeters and meters, so we can look at the distance in between where we put one seedling and where we put the other seedling. Really important. We can have them get their little rulers, depending on the distance that we're looking at, or we can use a tape measure or an inch or an inch measure. Just something that will allow them to be able to practice measurements in a very real way. All right, so as you're coming, as you're helping us, so you know, we may say, boy, come help me in the field. But don't just have the boy or the girl helping you in the field. Use it as an intentional opportunity to help him to understand that this is what we are doing and we are doing it this way. All right, this is how we're measuring it in other words. So I think sometimes, you know, it's challenging for parents because you just want to get things done. You don't really have that much time, and we'll probably say, Junior, just put it there, so. I've seen my mark out the spot there already, put it there. But these are wonderful opportunities for you to guide Junior in putting it according to specific measurements, all right? So just as a means of enforcing or reinforcing the skill. Area, a similar thing, we can measure the area, all right, around a fence that we may have in the yard or around a potato patch, all right? When you're looking at square meters. So these are concepts that we use every day in our everyday lives as adults. Let's engage our children because these are the very same concepts that they're learning in school. So when we're thinking about math and real world application, this is an excellent opportunity for us to help our children to connect what they're learning in school with what exists in real life. Because the whole purpose of learning, you know, is to give us an opportunity or to put us in a position to apply so that we can solve real world problems, all right? Fraction and ratio as well. We see this all the time in terms of mixing fertilizer, all right? or even just to step aside from guiding for a little while. For Jello, if you even have to mix Jello, all right? So we know that you have 1 part cold water to 1 part warm water, cups to a packet of Jello. These are opportunities for us to encourage them and help them to see relation of fractions, how these things work together in a very real world context. Volume as well, we have the wonderful opportunity to teach them about that as we look at things like cubic meters, how many liters this bucket holds, just different ways. So for example, we have a bucket that holds 20 liters, or we have a wheelbarrow that holds 651. We can say, all right, how many buckets do I need to fill up this wheelbarrow? Just different opportunities, as many opportunities as we can to support their learning. Now, this brings me to another point, which should be our final set of points as we go forward. Now, we looked at how we provide academic support to our children. We also looked at how we provide collaborative support, technological support, disciplinary support. Now, another support that we want to close off with is psychological support, which is very, very important. Now, when we talk about an environment that is psychologically safe, or when you look at psychological support, we are using it in the context of helping parents understand that we must create psychologically safe environments for children to learn, all right? Now, this environment is an environment where children feel safe to make mistakes. They feel safe to ask questions. They feel safe to offer ideas and safe to receive feedback. Very important variables when you look at learning, all right? Now, I always like to tell my parents, you know, when you look at it, the world can be a very harsh place. And I want you to think about this, especially in the context of a child who may be struggling in school, all right? So here he is sitting at school, and some of you can relate to this in a sense, you know, because I heard when Mrs. Myers was asking a particular question, and I think some persons were just not sure of the answer, or, you know, they were not sure of themselves. And I can just imagine from an adult perspective, you know, we don't want to just say anything and then it's foolishness and all the parents on the platform will laugh after me, all right? So it's a real thing. These are real emotions that we feel and we can identify with. So just imagine us as adults who should be able to better manage ourselves, right? And let us imagine how much harder it is for children who are learning to manage themselves and learning how to deal with these situations. So they may be in a class and certainly Mrs. teaching multiplication or division, and they're clueless as to how to do this long division, and they sit down there quiet as a lamb because they don't want to say anything, because they know if they probably say, Miss, I don't know it. Even if teacher is kind, and I expect that teacher will be kind and she'll go over it, but the little one on the back won't say, boy, you don't see. You know, so these are things that are real, and it's nothing new. We have all been through the school system, we know it works, right? Yeah. Unfortunately, these things happen. And so if when our children come home, they have the same fear to say, geez, when I sit down in front of mommy now and I tell her, I say, I don't know how to do this division. She gonna say, boy, how come you don't know this? Then just imagine that, right? So I think it's important that we understand that our home should be a safe place, at least a place where our children can be free to ultimately learn, all right? So that is what we're looking at when we're talking about psychologically safe environments. I realize that we're going a little over time, so just bear with us a little now, okay, mommies and daddies? Now, let's look at what happens to us.
Excuse me.
Yes.
Is this the Providence Education Center meeting?
No, this is a micro care center meeting. No, not Providence.
Okay.
All right, you're welcome. All right, so let's talk a little bit about stress. All right, because that is really what happened. That is really a little bit of what happened to us, and when Mrs. Myers asked that question earlier, and some of us were so, you know, it's like we froze because we're like, oh my goodness, we don't know how to navigate this one. So it's a good thing that you weren't sitting in front of Mrs. Myers, or Mrs. Myers to go point on you and say, all right, you answer, or you answer, or you answer. Then it will become an even more stressful or uncomfortable situation for us, right? Now, when our children are stressed for any reason at all, and stress now, I'm looking at it in the context of the stress that is generated by a fear of failure, a fear that people are going to laugh after me, a fear that people are going to make me feel less than, a fear that you're going to shout at me, then you know what ideally happens, or you know what really happens? It affects our brain, it affects our learning, it affects our memory. We shut down altogether, all right? So to try to teach a child in an environment that is stressful, an environment where they are frightful, is not productive at all. It is really an enemy, ultimately, to learning. And it will not put us in a position to be able to really support the curriculum at home, all right? No, there is a short video that I want you to look at, all right, parents? And I want you to tell me, as we look at this video, I want you to share your thoughts. Tell me what you think about this video, all right? Tell me if you think that this is an environment. Tell me if you think that this is an environment that is safe, an environment that will help your child to learn. So let's talk. So you're going to type your responses in the chat, and we're going to talk about this. And this is a video that has been making the rounds on social media. Pay close attention.
Next question. Mark has 6 fish. 3 of the fish drowned. How many fish does Mark have left? What the answer? 2? If you have 6 fish and 3 of them drowned, how much fish you have left? Go for the belt. Go for the belt.
All right. I see a little one there. All right, so let's talk about this now. How psychologically safe is this environment?
Not safe at all.
All right, tell me why you say it's not safe at all. Tell me what are your views, tell me what are your feelings as you look at this video.
Because the child is very fearful of his parents because he could not get the answer. So his mother was not, her temper is so much, she couldn't cope with him not knowing the answer. So she's so aggressive at the moment. So her retaliation is by hitting the child.
Ah, okay. All right, I see Yuri's hand. Yuri, go ahead.
Hear me?
Yes, go ahead, Yuri. Yes, I'm hearing you very clearly.
Right, definitely not safe. That parent wants to brutalize the poor child for not getting the things properly, and she didn't even have the time to say, okay, you don't know, let me assist you.
All right. So let's look at it. So I see 2 requests. Thank you, Yuri. I appreciate that. So I'm seeing where Simone's hand is up. Go ahead, Simone. Yuri, could you mute your microphone for me?
Good morning.
And I muted, right.
Unfortunately, I was nearly in that same situation. That's why I'm so late coming in. I saw 9 o'clock and I said, I have a 9:34 and I said I have a meeting to go to, and my son is online, but he was kind of intimidated by something, and I was trying to get it to him, but he wasn't really focused. And when I look back on the time after trying to help him, I realized that 10 o'clock passed, nearly 11, and I started getting annoyed. And he said to me, "Mommy, I am not this is not important. Go to your meeting, go to your meeting. And I felt so ashamed because he was actually downplaying his education so that I could go and do my thing. So
Okay.
sometimes we rush them because of things that occupy our time, and we push them aside, push their fears aside, forget that they are humans. Because
All
they're
right.
children, we forget that they are humans, and it's really not a good environment because we're not helping them to handle situations that are challenging, and
All
that's not
right.
good.
Thank you very much. Mrs.
You're
Myers, can you
welcome.
share some of what we have in the chat? All right, I'm waiting to hear from Mrs. Myers. But thank you so much for sharing, because ultimately when you look at it, as we said earlier, a psychologically safe environment is so important, because the minute that we allow our children to feel stressed in the learning space, no matter how much money we spend on resources, parents, I am telling you, you will not see or have the returns that you need, because a brain that is blocked, or a brain that is troubled, or a brain that is unsettled, or a child living in an environment where he's unsettled and constantly worried, is certainly a child that will have difficulty learning or benefiting from the learning experiences that we're looking at. Now, what are some things that you do? So we are all humans, and we all have those moments when our patience will run out, when we are working with our children, when we are doing our very best to help them to learn those things that are important for them to progress academically. What are some things that you have done in those moments when you feel impatient and feel the need to go for the belt? Word speaking. So let's talk, and I want you to share a little. Let's see how we can learn from each other, because the next couple of months, the next couple of weeks, they will not be easy. And parenting in general is not easy. So let's see, what are some things that we can do? What are some things that you have done? What advice can you give other parents to help them in those moments when they may be pushed or feel like they're going to be pushed over the edge?
Hello?
Yes, I'm hearing you. Go right ahead.
Right. For me, what I do sometimes, all right, it's like when I go in the evenings, my kids are home, my two boys, and there are two boys that are not easy to handle. I can tell you that. One is 15 and one is 7. And when I go in the evenings, if I go, I feel like some things are out of place. And I said to myself, I said, Jesus, so what I do, I just go into my room, take a little break, count to 10, because I always learn this when I'm going to school from my farm teacher. Just count to 10, with 10 or 20, because I can tell you, it can be so strenuous sometimes, especially when you're going and their father is not here at the moment. So when you're going, it's you alone. You have to think about for cook, you have to think about for this, go through school, work for this and that. Sometimes you have to take a alone time, if even 5 or 10 minutes, and just if you want to pray, if you want to say, Lord, just get me through this. There's something. This is something, and then you refresh yourself, and then you come out back and you say, yes, this is it. So anything them throw at you, and so you can listen and you can give advice, you can help them out and stuff like that. Because I can tell you, as a parent, it is very hard, especially if you're a single parent at any given time. And if I even two on, sometimes it can be hard, because sometimes you may say something, the father may say no, the father may say something, and you may say no, and I said so go, and then you have to just take a time, a break, and just put yourself together, gather your thoughts before you can handle anything at all.
All right.
That
Thank
is
you
my
very
little intake.
Thank you. Wonderful. Wonderful. No, I see some hands being raised. So Peter, I'm going to go with you. Unmute your microphone and share for us, Peter.
Okay, you hear me now?
Yes, I am.
Wonderful. Blessed morning, everyone.
Good morning.
What I do, I've learned this. You cannot think level-headed if you are angry.
or anxious. So what a person have to do is to take a breather. You take deep breaths. The count to 10, probably you have to count to about 100 depending on how anxious you are. But take 10 deep breaths. When you do this exercise as an individual, when I say deep breaths, I mean you inhale through the nostril and exhale through the mouth. You actually feel your temper or your emotions fade a bit. The blood pressure goes down. Then now you can able to deal with the child in a more civilized manner, such as you can compliment the child about something and then you come with the discipline after. You cannot discipline a child while you're angry. It's not going to work. So that's what we try to do as parents. I'm a father of 6. Two of my boys are 15. I have a 12-year-old going to high school. I have a 12-year-old almost now who wants to attend to the micro special parts of learning, and a daughter and a 21-year-old daughter. So I understand, and every one of them have their own emotional way of dealing with matters. They have different minds and they have different ways of expressing themselves. So you have to do, you have to know your child and then know yourself and practice self-control. And if you feel like you're not doing well, take a walk. That works. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Peter. So have you had any of those experiences where you're trying to do academic work on academic content with a child and it seems like, boy, they're not getting it any at all?
Yes, definitely. What we do is give the child a break as well. Change the illustrations. Use illustrations to get the child learning. You can't say 1 + 1 is equal to 2 and the child says, not getting it. You have to use illustrations. Things that are around it, as what you were teaching a while ago. You have to use illustration. Things that the child can relate to. If you're going to talk about cows and camels and the child don't even know what is a camel, it's not going to work. So you have to sort of come down to their level to draw them up to your level of understanding as well. So that's what we do as parents.
Wonderful. Thank you, Peter. So I saw some other hands that were up. Mrs. Mars, are you there with me? Anything from the chats?
Yes, I am. Yes, I am. Yes, I am.
All right, so tell me what is happening in the chat.
Simone shared that you invite them to leave the situation and go for a walk. They come go for a walk with me. That's what she shared. Invite them to leave the situation and come go for a walk with me. That's from Simone.
Did anybody else share in the chat?
Natalie is asking, sorry. Yes. Natalie is asking, what can you do when the stresses are from the other siblings? What can you do when the stresses are from the other siblings?
All right, wonderful, Natalie. We're going to get to that. Simone, go ahead, unmute your mic and go ahead.
Yes, as I said, they should walk away from this. You should walk away from the situation. When what I do, my son is very impulsive, and sometimes I want to just shout or maybe hit. So if it's very overwhelming, what I do is go into my bathroom, scream into a towel. Then I wash my face, I come outside, and I say, let's go for a walk or let's jog around the house. And I noticed that, as Mr. Smith said, it makes the oxygen flow better in your brain and you calm down. Sometimes when I look back, I said, seriously, that situation I couldn't have handled. And it feels, because you're now rational. When you have things cluster in your brain, you have things for your parent as a parent, because you're compartmentalized as a human being. You're a parent, you're an employee, you are everything, and you're trying to balance the thing, and then a child comes and what we call inconvenience us, then we tend to get irrational. And so what I try to do, what I do is listen to other parents as they discipline their children, see what they do, and I try to speak to myself like I'm speaking it into the future. So when I see those things pop up, it is overwhelming, but I said scream, breathe, and then I walk. Then when we finish walking, I say to him, did you know that you could do it this way? Or mommy doesn't want to make you annoyed yourself or angry yourself, but sometimes this is what happens to an adult who is otherwise engaged, and we don't see anything amicably with an amicable path where both of us can work on. So when you have something, don't be afraid to tell me still, although you see me get upset, and you try to make your relationship a good one, where next time he's not going to say mommy is going to fly up or get angry at me, or teacher is going to do that, because whatever you do in the home, that's what he's going to think outside in school. He's not going to want to ask teacher a question because he thinks teacher is going to act like mommy, right? So you have to train him at home like you want him to respond in the classroom. You understand? So we have to be, yes, our lives are very hectic, but we have to make sure that we don't put it out, because what we are modeling is something to make him a man later, or what he's going to use as a man later. So I try not to hit or shout. I will, if I'm feeling it, like I can't walk with him, I said, all right, I try to smile and I say, do 2 laps around the house and come back. Maybe your brain will feel better. And I just do my breathing while he's running around the house. You understand? And that will help both of us to come back where it is important.
Thank you very much. So parents, I hope you're taking notes. And so we also want to, I'm seeing you, Gillette and Everald and Yuri. So keep the hands up. We're going to come to you shortly. But I want you to also reflect on the question that was asked earlier. What do we do when the challenge is with the other siblings who are in the home? All right. The person who asked that question, it would be good if you can just give us a little bit more background. The problem, is it a situation that the other children in the home are making it difficult for you to work with your child? Or is it that we're looking at the fact that they're teasing or there's competition? Give us a little bit more background. All right, Everald, go right ahead for me. And as soon as Everald is finished, Yuri, go right ahead. So unmute Everald and go right ahead.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning. Good morning.
Well, for me, as I said, my name is Everald Daly. I'm a teacher by profession. I have 3 daughters at home with me. I have a 7-year-old and 2 3-year-olds. And since I am home with them, it's 3 different personalities, 3 different learning styles. And I realized that what works for me when frustration kicks in, I have a set of twins. One moves faster than the other, and the one that moves, the one that is faster, she gets the information the first time you get it. The other one feel a bit insecure. She don't want to sit down. She don't want to do the work, and that causes frustration on her part. So what I do is that I separate them in that aspect, because what she does is just focus on her sister, her twin sister, and she doesn't really, if her twin sister will go ahead, move fast. What I do, I separate them, put them in 2 different groups, and I teach them according to their ability. So twin 1 does not know what twin 2 is doing, and I realized by doing that, it worked out tremendously. She's able to complete her work in a good, reasonable time, and I also don't keep back twin 1, because twin 1, when she finish, I give her extra work, and she move ahead. And twin two now gets a little bit extra time, feel confident in herself to do that work. The older one for me, I am mostly high school trained. So the older one for me, the 7-year-old, she's a bit, she's not quick also, but she's willing. I just ensure that I just deal with the strategies. I learn the English. I don't like the English, but I have to teach it to them, and I ask for help. That's the biggest thing with me. I ask for help. In any area where I see that my kids are not doing well, I ask for help. And I realize that, especially being a male with daughters, and you're asking for help, you get a lot of help, right? And I realize that the help that I'm getting is really helping, is really good for them, and it motivates them. Sometimes I carry them to, speak to a professional about how they feel. I also ask them how to express themselves, tell me what they are thinking. So now, even though it was a challenge earlier on, for now they are speaking to me, they are saying, Daddy, I don't understand this, I think I need a break. Sometimes we just stop, we play, we do lessons in shorter time. So for the day, rather than having them sit for 2 hours once they complete a lesson, I break them, I give them the time to use the tablet to watch anything that they feel like, then we come back again. And I realize that they have accomplished a lot doing that. So shorter teaching time, break them, and ask for help has been working great for me.
Thank you so much. Oh my goodness. You see, the time is running away from us so much. But let me interject to say, wonderful comments. And this is, the purpose of having this discussion is to help you to understand. This is like a learning community. We're learning from each other. We're learning best practices. So I don't even have to go much further. But certainly some of the things that were mentioned is that certainly, we take breaks when we need to recollect ourselves, to make sure that we are also calm and in a position to engage our children in a comfortable way. If you don't understand something, we find ways to learn it ourselves or to get help. We're looking at also apologizing to our children. So in those moments when we get out and we perhaps put them in a position to feel unsafe, we are going to apologize as adults and help them reframe the experience, as it were, and to reopen that route for them to feel comfortable to come to us and to talk to us about academic challenges that they're having. And I must add as well, parents are part of our role too, is to be an advocate for our children. All right. So when we see them and we see that they're struggling with a particular skill, we can always feel comfortable to call Miss, and say, Miss, I know that you must have gone through this many times, but John is still not getting this. Is there something else that you think we can do? Engagements, help me to understand as well, because that is a part of our role as parents. But as we look towards wrapping up this session, and I'm seeing those hands still there, I'm going to invite you parents to type your name in the chat for me again. And this is for those who would love to have a certificate, to receive a certificate of attendance for this session. I want you to put your name in that chat. And just by way of taking a little poll, I want you to indicate which parish you're from. So for example, I would say Georgia Johnson Grant, comma, St. Catherine. All right, so let's go ahead and just type that in the chat as well right now, while we move over to Mr. Smith real quickly. Jeline, your hand was up, but you went somewhere else. So let's just take one more comment, one quick comment, and then we're going to wrap up. So remember, type your full name in the chat and the parish that you're from. All right, so do that right away for us. And after Peter is finished, or Gillette, okay, Peter, I'm gonna ask Gillette to comment. All right, she was up a long time ago. So after Gillette comments, I'm going to turn the time over to Mrs. Myers. Go ahead, Gillette.
Oh, hi, everyone. I'm not sure you're hearing me, but hello.
I'm hearing you. Wonderful.
Okay.
We're hearing you clearly.
Okay, awesome. I was having some internet challenges, so that's why I keep on coming on and off. One of the things that I like to say, I did not get everything, but I get a few things, and I thank you very much. But about the child, you're saying that what we can do, what I do sometimes, I pray. I pray a lot. That helps me. And I read. And also, it's good to get support. If you can have an adult, like a elderly, somebody who is a little older than you and who have experience in raising children, if you can get that support, it is very, very helpful. And I'm so glad that I have a couple, a husband and wife who is married, and they help me with my children. They will help me with the discipline because sometimes as parents we get inconsistent, but they will help me with the discipline and help me in getting the children focused on their work. What they do, they separate the children. I have a son and a daughter, and they will separate them. So one will around the back, the other one will be around the front, and they do their work. Right? But if we can get the support, I think the support is very, very important because we cannot do this alone. We cannot do it by ourselves. So get good support, a positive influence. Auntie.
Thank you, Gillette. Thank you very much. Everett, I see your hands up, and Peter was still up. I would have loved to hear from you, but we are so out of time. We are so out of time. So do type your comment, Peter and Everett. Type it in the chat if you have something else to say, so that others can just jump in and look at it. All right. Appreciate it all. Appreciate it all. Mrs. Myers, over to you.
Yes, Mrs. Johnson Grant, thank you very much. I see that persons have joined us from St. Catherine, Kingston, and Clarendon. There may be more, but those are the ones we're seeing now. Parents, we want to thank you so much on behalf of the Michael University Care Center for joining us for this workshop. You were wonderful. We appreciated your interactions, and we hope that you feel more hopeful about working with your children in supporting the curriculum as the school term continues. Thank you so much for your time, and all the best with your children. Okay, so we're saying bye-bye now.
Right, so we're saying bye-bye now. So remember to type your full name and your parish in the chat. All right, put it there, put it there, put it there. All right, and especially so if you would love to have a certificate of attendance for attending this session. All right, so as soon as you have done that, you may feel free to leave, and we will definitely see you again. So do have a wonderful year, and again, it was wonderful, wonderful having you.
Yes,